Joining us now, host of the Independent Americans podcast, Paul Rieckhoff, senior editor at The Atlantic and host of Radio Atlantic, Hanna Rosin, and Tim Miller back with us now. Paul, we're talking about the Washington Times here and a complete erosion, it seems, at least according to their reporting, in faith in the leader at the Pentagon. What is the danger in this, not only for the morale in the military, but for all of us Americans?
I think the danger is you have a force that doesn't trust its leader, and it's the force that's responsible for waging our wars, protecting our homeland, and is currently involved in a number of escapades around the globe. It's significant because it's the Washington Times, and it's happening at the same time where Hegseth is trying to consolidate essentially a propaganda machine at the Pentagon. He's removed the Pentagon press corps, unprecedented, dangerous, outrageous, and he's now replacing them with folks like reporters from InfoWars. So he's trying to consolidate his propaganda machine, unify their message, remove any opposition, any questions, because he also knows that the calls are coming from inside the House. These are people who don't trust him, don't believe in him, and people who used to work for him. So I think his chaos and his discombobulation and his incompetence is starting to pile up.
Yeah. So, Tim, to that end, are there cracks seeming to emerge in the support for Hegseth, and how far could that trickle up? Would the White House at some point say enough is enough?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this is definitely, in a weird way, this coming out of the Washington Times is something that makes Pete Hegseth more vulnerable than if it would have come from a mainstream outlet. We're in this weird upside-down place. It's kind of like that movie Men in Black, where you have to read the National Enquirer to get the real news about the aliens. So we're kind of there now. You have to read the far-right MAGA news to know what people are really thinking inside the White House in a lot of cases. And the fact that they would speak to an outlet like that to complain means that these are probably people inside the military who are maybe even sympathetic to Trump, but want just more competent leadership and are trying to send a signal to him and a message to him. And we've seen this in the past. There was a similar situation with a Trump appointee at that time, I think, leaked to Politico. But I think the fact that these complaints are coming from kind of inside the not just the military, but inside kind of the right-wing ecosystem means that, it's something that makes him actually vulnerable.
Yeah, and we know the president pays attention to news, especially right-wing outlets. The sort of issues that have been cited in the Washington Times or Hegseth's fixation on facial hair, press access. Is all of this going to play well with the commander-in-chief, with the president, who does tend to do his own nitpicking and kind of pick up on the culture wars, or is this going to become a distraction at some point?
I think it could go both ways, but I think it's a really vulnerable moment for Hegseth right now. On the one hand, there was a firestorm around him initially that I think that he survived because he basically made the case to the president like they're coming after me, like they're coming after you, and we're going to go after the fake news. And so that's why I think that this is interesting. Now that these complaints are not really coming from somebody that they can turn into a boogeyman, right? Like this is coming from military leaders. This is coming from a right-wing media outlet. And so, at some point, all of that bad press starts to pile up, and Trump doesn't like it. And we've seen this time and again going back to the first term where, he wants to defend his people for a little while against the media. But after a while, it's all about him. And if they're taking on too much water, he starts to look to move on.
So, Paul, is it rare to see members of the military starting to utilize the channels to seem to get the president's attention, this anonymous reporting? Is there any other method that the rank and file, that senior officials could actually use, senior officers, I should say, could use to try to push back on Hegseth's agenda?
Yeah, and I think they're picking their spots. I think folks want to hear generals walking out or resigning their commissions. That's not happening, but they're picking their spots. And the resignation or removal of the head of Southern Command, who oversees Venezuela, is a very significant development, right? That's an example of a pushback, or at least a friction point. And I think Tim touches on something else important. Hegseth makes it all about him. And that's what you're not supposed to be. He's not supposed to be the star of this show. Our troops are supposed to be the star of the show. And he continues to put himself in that role. And what I'm hearing from folks who are close to Trump is that Hegseth is actually slowing the president down. Imagine how much farther ahead Trump's agenda would be if Hegseth wasn't screwing up all the time. And that's what I'm hearing from folks who are inside Trump's world. And I think sooner or later he's going to run out of shelf life.
Yeah, and you wonder if that's at loggerheads with what the president likes, which is to be the center of attention and for it to be his agenda. Hanna, there are those who have touted Hegseth's focus focus in that very article of growing the military recruitment, tactical drone development, the development of the Golden Dome missile shield, but others say that the bulk of his energy has been dedicated to those sort of menial, laser-focused, ridiculous things that he's coming up with. So we also saw the meeting in Quantico where he gathered all of the heads of the military. It was sort of unprecedented. And at the end of it, a lot of them were shaking their heads going, what the heck was that? They say that this is tumultuous, that this is a waste of time. What does all of this tumult telegraph to our allies, to our foes around the world?
Well, honestly, for one thing, I would say Trump also likes the pomp and circumstance. He also likes the military parade. So I can't really tell whose side he's on here. And he really hasn't rewarded people who are dissenting. He hasn't rewarded generals who dissent to his policy. So I'm not sure how he'll look upon military personnel who dissent to what he's doing. To our allies, it's probably mass confusion. Like it's very hard to tell whether Trump is going to side with Hegseth, not side with Hegseth. But it also seems that Trump is taking some kind of unexpected aggressive action. So I think the messages are confusing.